William Ruto, a name that sparks debates in every corner of Kenya. Some call him a visionary, others, a man steering the country into uncharted waters. But one thing is undeniable, his story isn't just a rise, it's a rebellion against the odds. Here's a guy who didn't just walk into power, he fought for it, loved fiercely by one half of Kenya's political scene, and loathed just as passionately by the other. Ruto doesn't do lukewarm. He's not your run-of-the-mill political figure. Oh no, he's what you'd call a political tactician on steroids. Grit, guts, and a mind sharper than a panga, his climb to the presidency could have been ripped straight out of a blockbuster script. But wait, it wasn't all applause and red carpets. Oh no. This is Kenya's political arena we're talking about.
Declares that Ruto William Samoei has been duly elected as the president.
Wow.
The Game of Thrones on steroids. Ruto had to outmaneuver the toughest, the richest, the most deeply rooted. He didn't just break the mold, he obliterated it. Yet despite the brilliance of his ascension, Ruto's tenure as president is now deep in turbulent waters. The honeymoon is over and the daggers are out.
I think there's nothing to talk.
Critics say he's on a fast track to becoming Kenya's worst president. Really? Rough judgment for someone who's barely had a chance to settle into the seat, don't you think? But here's the catch. The voices calling him out aren't murmurs in the shadows. They're young. They're tech-savvy. They're Kenya's Gen Z and the educated millennials, mobilized through the endless scrolls of Twitter threads and TikTok rants. They've got receipts, opinions, and frankly, no patience for excuses.
And it's very unfortunate, to be honest, because whatever we are doing right now, it's not just for the young people, it's not about the millennials or Gen Zs, it's for everyone.
Add that to the scorching iron of inflation, unemployment, and sky-high expectations, and Ruto's presidency has all the makings of a gladiator showdown. Join us as we unravel this rags-to-power story of a village boy who went from selling chicken to being the most powerful man in Kenya. Picture this. Small village, humble beginnings, no shoes, no shortcuts, just grit. William Ruto, born to Daniel and Sarah Cheruiyot, didn't have a silver spoon. What did he have? Faith, drive, and a knack for seizing moments. The son of a deeply religious family, Sundays at the African Inland Church were as routine as sunrises in Sambut. Fast forward a few years, and you'll find him hustling on the side of dusty roads, selling peanuts and chickens. Yes, peanuts. And that little hustle would lay the foundation for one very big life. Ruto's climb started with education. First, Keratet Primary School, then Warring Secondary. By the time he hit Kapsabet High, he was already moving like a young man with a mission. Education wasn't just an obligation, it was his chance to rewrite his story. He made it all the way to the University of Nairobi, where he didn't just attend classes, he earned a BS in botany and zoology. He wasn't done. Oh no, Ruto would later return, stacking up a Master of Science in 2011 and finally a PhD in plant ecology by 2018. Just your average kid from Sambut? Not anymore. It was 1986. A young William Ruto had just stepped onto the grounds of the University of Nairobi, an institution simmering with activism and rebellion. But the air was charged with more than just academic ambition. It was electric with unrest. The student organization of Nairobi University, SONU, the formidable political force on campus, was about to meet its end in a storm of intrigue and protests. Enter Wafula Buke. Charismatic, defiant, and almost presidential, literally. Buke had been poised to take the reins of SONU, but the path to power was abruptly snatched away when he was accused of being, wait for it, a Libyan spy. Yes, you heard that right, a spy. The drama didn't end there. His arrest sent shockwaves across campus, igniting student protests that painted the university red with rebellion. The government's response? Swift and ruthless. SONU was banned, leaving a somber void in organized student politics. With SONU out of the picture, the students dissolved into smaller, more fragmented groups. Ethnic associations became their safe havens, filling the void left by the larger organization. But behind the scenes of this shift, a much larger game was being played. Strongman President Daniel Arap Moi, a political chess master under mounting pressure from pro-democracy movements, had his eyes on these fractured alliances. Moi saw an opportunity. These district-based associations became pipelines for recruiting loyal political operators, foot soldiers to fortify his regime. And among these recruits were players whose names would echo in Kenyan politics for years. One of them, Rigathi Gachagua, now Ruto's right-hand man but back then, a sharp, calculated operator quietly ascending the ranks. Gachagua, a deft student leader, found himself drawn into Moi's web. From campus politics, he swiftly moved into civil service, eventually becoming the personal assistant to the head of civil service, an advantageous post packed with influence. And when Moi chose his successor in 2002, he wasn't leaving anything to chance. The chosen one? A young, untested Uhuru Kenyatta. The guide? None other than Rigathi Gachagua, his new personal assistant. Behind the scenes, Rigathi wasn't just holding Uhuru's hand, he was crafting a legacy of loyalty that would carry forward into contemporary Kenyan politics. From campus protests to the corridors of power, these were the stepping stones for Kenya's political elites. A legacy forged in rebellion, ambition, and yes, just a sprinkle of espionage. One could argue it's the stuff of legend, or maybe just another chapter in the saga of Kenyan politics. But it wasn't all books and lectures. Enter Rachel Chebet. They tied the knot in 1991, partners in life, hustle, and growth. 6 kids later, Ruto wasn't just building a family, he was building an empire. You can't forget where you came from. Ruto never did. He often speaks of his childhood struggles.
Hustle matters, and you call yourself the hustler in chief. Why do you call yourself the hustler in chief?
Because I am.
The days walking barefoot, the long hours hustling for a few coins, that memory fueled him, drove him to success. Today, Ruto stands at the summit of his ambitions as the President of Kenya.
His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya. So help me God.
He presides over a sprawling network of businesses, from real estate to agriculture, hospitality to insurance. His portfolio reads like a playbook for modern enterprise. It's not just wealth, it's legacy. The year is 1992. Kenya is gearing up for a high-stakes general election, and a young, ambitious William Ruto steps into the political chessboard. But Ruto isn't just here to watch the game. Oh no, he's here to play. Alongside some formidable allies, he co-founds the Youth for KANU 1992, a group aimed at rallying the youth behind Daniel Arap Moi, the then president and leader of the Kenya African National Union, KANU. Spoiler alert. This move rockets Ruto into the political spotlight. Fast forward to 1997, and guess what? Ruto clinches his first parliamentary seat. The man's on a roll. By 2002, he's re-elected and even takes a stint as the Minister of Home Affairs under Moi. Talk about leveling up. But wait, here's where the plot thickens. Moi stuns everyone by grooming Uhuru Kenyatta as his successor, a move that sparks a major split in KANU. Drama alert. Some party members aren't too thrilled, but Ruto, cool as a cucumber, he backs Kenyatta for the presidency. Plot twist, Kenyatta loses to Mwai Kibaki. Ouch. But don't count Ruto out. By 2005, he snags the position of KANU's Secretary General, a pretty big deal. That same year, when the government puts forward a referendum for a new constitution, Ruto isn't buying it. Instead, he joins forces with political heavyweights from other parties to rally voters against it. Exit polls, they win. The constitution is squashed. Then, like any good underdog story, Ruto announces his own presidential ambitions in 2006. Bold, right? Well, KANU doesn't think so. They're not thrilled. Unshaken, Ruto shifts gears and tries his luck with the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, a coalition born out of the anti-constitution alliance. Unfortunately, he loses the party's nomination to Raila Odinga. By October 2007, he officially says goodbye to his KANU Secretary General title. And just like that, another chapter closes, but trust me, this wasn't the end. Oh no, Ruto's story was only warming up.
And I have come to accept that I may be the child of nobody, but we want to make this country a country of everybody.
It's December 2007. The air is electric. The stakes? Sky high. The elections are underway, and one man, William Ruto, has thrown his weight behind Raila Odinga under the ODM banner. Their mission? Unseat the sitting president, Mwai Kibaki. The provisional results come in.
All the documents that we have show clearly that Raila Amolo Odinga has 4,215,437 and Honorable Mwai Kibaki has 3,748,261 votes. That is what we have.
Odinga appears to be on the brink of victory. The crowd roars. The nation watches, holding its breath. And then, bam, the official results hit. Kibaki is declared the winner by the slimmest of margins. Odinga rejects the outcome, and international observers raise their eyebrows, questioning what really went down. What follows can only be described as an eruption. Protests ignite across the country, spreading like wildfire. But what starts as political unrest quickly morphs into a nightmare. The violence, it's brutal. Ethnic groups clash in a horrifying spiral of chaos. The Kikuyu, the Kalenjin, the Luo. No one is spared. All three groups find themselves on both ends of the tragedy, as both victims and perpetrators. The numbers are gut-wrenching, more than 1,000 dead, around 600,000 displaced from their homes. Weeks of unrest turn lives upside down, leaving scars that run deep. But then, a fragile ray of hope. After months of painstaking mediation, the fighting stops. April 2008 arrives with a handshake moment. Cue the creation of a coalition government. Kibaki stays on as president, while Odinga steps into a shiny new role as prime minister. Ruto lands a ministerial double feature, agriculture and higher education, and keeps his parliamentary seat. For a while, things seem calm. But politics, my friend, is rarely that simple. Ruto and Odinga. Yeah, that partnership, it starts to crumble. By 2011, Ruto leaves the ODM. He bounces around political parties for a bit, kind of like switching seats on a sinking ship, before parking himself in the United Republican Party by 2012. But this isn't just about party shuffles. Behind the scenes, another storm is brewing. Enter the International Criminal Court, ICC. They've been paying attention, and they're not here to play around. By December 2010, the ICC drops the bombshell, a list of 6 names. These are the individuals they believe are most responsible for the horrific post-election violence. Guess who's on that list? Ruto and none other than Uhuru Kenyatta. Fast forward to January 2012. The charges are official. Ruto is accused of crimes against humanity. Allegations start swirling. Claims that he organized and coordinated targeted attacks against certain ethnic groups that had backed Kibaki. The headlines explode. The stakes shoot higher. This isn't just a story of political power plays, it's one of fractured alliances, contested victories, and the haunting shadows of justice. And with Ruto's name now etched onto the ICC docket, the drama is far from over. It's 2013, the world watching, tensions high, and the stakes even higher. William Ruto, facing ICC charges, could have stepped back, could have faded into the background. But no, he was undeterred. Instead of retreating, Ruto doubled down, his gaze fixed firmly on the prize of political power. Enter Uhuru Kenyatta. The two men, once political adversaries, shook hands in a move that had everyone talking. And just like that, Uhuruto was born, a nickname that united their vision and ambitions into one powerhouse alliance. Together with their parties, they formed the Jubilee Coalition, a force determined to define the outcome of Kenya's March 2013 elections. The competition? Fierce. 7 rival duos stepped up to challenge them, none more formidable than Raila Odinga and his running mate, Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. The race was grueling. The debates? Heated. The stakes? Monumental. But when the dust settled, Uhuruto emerged victorious, clinching just over 50% of the vote. The result? Contested, of course. Odinga challenged it. However, the courts dismissed his appeal. And on April 9th, 2013, Kenyatta and Ruto were inaugurated as president and deputy president, cementing their place in the history books. But this story wasn't done with plot twists. Months later, on September 10th, 2013, the ICC curtain rose again, this time for Ruto and radio executive Joshua Arap Sang. The charges? Serious. The courtroom battles? Intricate and dramatic. It wasn't just about justice, it was a spectacle of global proportions. The trial dragged on, each twist like a courtroom drama series that refused to end. Finally, on April 5th, 2016, came the verdict. Not guilty, due to insufficient evidence for conviction. However, the judges didn't leave without a sting in their tail, pointing to witness interference and intolerable political meddling that made the whole case complicated. Oh, and they left the door wide open for a retrial, hinting that Ruto's legal saga might not be over. What about Kenyatta? By 2015, the ICC had dropped its proceedings against him entirely, leaving both Uhuruto figures free to govern, maneuver, and, perhaps, continue scripting their unparalleled political saga. With the ICC trials now firmly behind them, Ruto and Kenyatta turned their sights to the next big stage, the general election. The Jubilee Coalition wasn't going to settle for the same old strategy. Oh no. By September 2016, they pulled a bold flex, merging their affiliated parties into one heavyweight political machine. The Jubilee Party. This wasn't just a rebrand, it was a calculated move to dominate the playing field. And who were their dynamic duo on the ballot for the August 8th, 2017 showdown? You guessed it, Kenyatta and Ruto were back at it. Election day came and went, and boom, they clinched victory with over 54% of the vote. A solid win, right? Except, just like deja vu, their closest rival Raila Odinga was not having it. He cried foul, contesting the results yet again. But here's another plot twist. This time, the Supreme Court stepped in and dropped a bombshell. They annulled the election. Yes, annulled, as in, we're scrapping this and starting over. This was unprecedented, electrifying the political scene like never before. A fresh election was called, slated for October 26th. Except there was one problem. Odinga was out. Frustrated by what he claimed were unresolved shenanigans in the electoral process, he pulled out of the race and urged his supporters to boycott the vote. Now imagine this. Kenyatta and Ruto cruised to victory again, but this time it was under the shadow of embarrassingly low voter turnout. A win is a win though, and on November 28th, they were sworn in for their second term. For Kenyatta, this was the final curtain call. Constitutionally, he was maxed out after 2 terms. But for Ruto, oh, this was just the warm-up. With Kenyatta stepping aside,
it has been indeed a great pleasure and a great joy working together, because if you're working in an environment where you are happy, you are also able to deliver. And we can only thank that to each and every one of you individually and collectively.
Ruto had positioned himself as the heir apparent. The stage was set, and the stakes had never been higher. The next act in this political saga, well, that's a story waiting to be told. William Ruto's second term as deputy president started out powerful but ended, well, icy. His bond with President Uhuru Kenyatta? Yeah, that didn't just cool, it basically flatlined.
Mr. President, please, stop talking about me. Talk about your candidate. Tunaelewana? Mtu waambie wewe rais, tuambie huyu mtu wa kitendawili atawacha kununua reli lini? Atawacha kujiapisha lini? Atawacha kuvuruga Kenya lini? Atawacha mambo ya violence lini?
Meanwhile, in a plot twist straight out of a soap opera, Kenyatta and his former rival Raila Odinga stunned everyone with a shocker reconciliation in 2018. But wait, it gets juicier. Not only did they patch things up, but they teamed up for the infamous Building Bridges Initiative, BBI, task force. Their mission? To dissect Kenya's challenges and whip up a list of grand solutions. Sounds noble, right? Except for one problem. Their bromance pushed Ruto further into the political wilderness, turning him from heir apparent to, well, an outsider looking in. And when the BBI recommendations evolved into a constitutional amendment bill, Ruto wasn't buying it. Nope, not even a little. He called it expensive, unnecessary, and here's the kicker, a power grab dressed up in reform. Even so, the wheels kept turning until March 2022 delivered the twist no one saw coming. Kenya's courts swiped left on the bill, branding it unconstitutional. And Ruto? Oh, he was ready. His critics called it gloating. Ruto probably just called it a good day.
Munasema tutalazimishwa. Watatulazimisha. Hawa watu watajua hawajui.
Kenya's vice presidency, rebranded as the deputy presidency after the 2010 constitution overhaul, once held the reputation of a political death trap. It was a role steeped in danger, where occupants were often at the mercy of the president's whims. A quick hire here, a sudden firing there, or a quiet nudge towards resignation, all part of the precarious package. Few dared to claim the seat with confidence. That is, until William Ruto came into the picture. Ruto didn't just sit around waiting for the tides to turn. No, he knew from day one that the rules of survival for the deputy throne had changed. When he and President Uhuru Kenyatta were sworn in for their second term on November 27, 2017, Ruto wasted no time plotting his next move. His strategy? Get ahead of the pack immediately. The prize ahead was the presidency, and hesitation wasn't part of the playbook. But there was a catch. Running his campaign gears so early hit a nerve with Kenyatta. The president, now focused on his legacy projects, wasn't thrilled about his deputy hogging the limelight.
Sasa jameni, si kwanza tutulize boli jameni, tufanye kazi.
To Kenyatta, this wasn't teamwork. It was sabotage. The tension between the two men was palpable. And yet for Ruto, the logic was simple. Waiting meant losing.
Na tulikuchagua uwe rais wa Kenya. Wacha kututisha. Sisi hapana watu wa kutishwa. Ni kweli ama si kweli?
The warning signs couldn't have been clearer back in 2017. Kenyatta's lackluster endorsement energy and aloof demeanor hinted that the promised presidential backing for Ruto in 2022 might just be a mirage. Why risk everything hoping for help that might never come, Ruto likely thought. His answer? Plan ahead and plan big. After all, the competition would be nothing short of colossal. Enter Raila Odinga. The man was a giant of Kenyan politics, a four-time presidential candidate with an unshakable presence on the stage. To challenge someone like Raila, Ruto needed every advantage he could muster. Hesitation wasn't an option, but the stakes were about to get even higher. On September 1st, 2017, the Supreme Court of Kenya delivered a bombshell verdict, nullifying the August election result that had declared Kenyatta and Ruto the victors. Chaos loomed. Raila Odinga's refusal to participate in the court-ordered re-election unless the Electoral Commission was reformed only added to the uncertainty. Behind closed doors, panic brewed. President Kenyatta, visibly shaken, looked ready to throw in the towel. That's when Ruto stepped up. According to a leaked audio recording exposing his behind-the-scenes maneuvering, Ruto didn't mince words. "I would have slapped him if I could," he said starkly, recalling the moment he refused to allow Kenyatta to surrender. "I couldn't have let him let the presidency go after the amount of work we'd put in."
So, ndio huyo sasa hii maneno sijui nini, mimi sitaki mimi nataka kwenda Ichaweri wewe sijui sasa mimi sitaki, wacha tuachane na hii kitu. Mimi nikamwangalia nikamwambia wewe, ni vile tu nilikuwa na heshima, ningemchapa kofi.
For Ruto, this wasn't just about power. It was the culmination of years of grit, sweat, and sleepless nights spent chasing the ultimate prize. To give it all up? Not a chance. That particular moment, as tension hung in the air, felt almost like déjà vu. Ruto faced roadblocks before and learned not to fumble the ball. Not when so much was on the line. William Ruto wasn't just reshaping the deputy presidency, he was making it his launching pad. What happens next? Well, buckle up. The story of Kenya's political chessboard is far from over. By the time the August 2022 general election rolled around, Kenya's political stage had been turned completely upside down. Picture this: William Ruto, once a stalwart of the Jubilee Party, had dramatically exited the fold to chart his own course. He was now the flag bearer of the newly minted United Democratic Alliance, anchoring the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. But this wasn't just a career pivot, it was a full-blown political plot twist. Enter Uhuru Kenyatta, the man who had shared not one, but two ballots with Ruto in previous elections. Back in February, Kenyatta delivered the ultimate political betrayal. He didn't just distance himself from his former running mate, oh no, he publicly declared Ruto unfit to lead, and instead threw his weight behind Raila Odinga. Talk about adding fuel to the fire. Meanwhile, Jubilee Party itself jumped ship and joined Odinga's Azimio la Umoja alliance. Are you keeping up? Because the plot was only thickening. Now, the race had four contenders for the ultimate prize, the presidency, but this was always going to be a showdown between the juggernauts, Ruto and Odinga. On his campaign trail, Ruto had a strategy that was as clever as it was calculating. He crafted his narrative as the self-proclaimed hustler. This wasn't just a political buzzword, it became a movement. Ruto painted himself as the voice of ordinary Kenyans endlessly striving, hustling, and fighting to get ahead, juxtaposed against what he called the dynasties born into wealth and privilege, personified by none other than Odinga and Kenyatta. Then came August 9th, the day of reckoning. The votes were in, and as the nation held its breath, the head of the Electoral Commission announced William Ruto as Kenya's next president.
Has been duly elected as the president.
With 50.49% of the vote, it was a razor-thin victory over Odinga's 48.85%. But before celebrations could properly kick off, the results were thrown into chaos. 4 out of 7 electoral commissioners outright rejected the outcome. And Odinga? He wasn't buying it. He filed a challenge with the Supreme Court, claiming foul play. For weeks, the nation remained on edge. Could Ruto actually take office, or was this going to implode in an epic legal battle? On September 5th, the Supreme Court issued its final verdict. There was no credible evidence of fraud. Ruto's victory stood. A week later, on September 13th, William Ruto was inaugurated as Kenya's 5th president, closing the chapter on one of the most dramatic and fiercely contested elections in the nation's history. At this point, it's safe to assume that now all is over, and Ruto, the chosen leader of the Kenyan people, was going to lead the country to prosperity. Well, you are wrong. Ruto's presidency has been crazy, like crazy, from parliament breaches to deputy president impeachment to the likes of Oscar Sudi claiming that they will rig the 2027 elections. Have I mentioned the push to extend the presidential limit to 7 years? With an impeached deputy president on Ruto's neck, and a collision with foe-turned friend Raila Odinga, Ruto has played his political cards. The mountain is not happy. And the lake, well, after Raila's unsuccessful AU chairman bid, it's safe to say he is a man who cannot be trusted. Love him or hate him, Ruto is a political genius. It remains to be seen how he handles the 2027 elections. If he comes out victorious, it's going to be safe to say he is the GOAT of politics in Kenya. But it's not going to be easy. Tell me who you want me to do next in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button to encourage me to do more of these Kenyan political stories. If you are feeling generous, you can also bless my mpesa with that 10 or 20 bob. Be blessed.
Ama niaje my friend? Sasa eti wewe sasa unaanza kunithreaten mimi. Ati utanifanya nini? Bora usiue watoto wangu. Lakini mimi na wewe tafadhali tuheshimiane.